This is Eric McKinney, joined by Greg Katz. Greg, we're talking five things from USC's 33-17 win against Utah out in Salt Lake City. It moves USC to 3-0 on the season. It drops Utah to 0-1, and maybe most importantly for USC, now they hold tiebreakers over both Arizona State and Utah. We talked about coming into this season. Those first three games, you had two big ones right at the beginning. USC moves to 3-0 and runs that first half of their season. And so let's get into the five things from this game. First thing right off the top, your play of the game.
Well, I'm going to cop out a little bit on the play of the game, but I'm going to say an overall picture of the plays of the game molded into one. So I know I'm confusing everybody, but in the second half, USC's defense did not allow any points. And you can't win if you don't score points. In the second half, USC outscored them 9-0, which isn't earth-shattering on offense. But the plays of the game would be the defense as a collective group at any given time were getting sacks, harassing. They played with aggression. So that's going to be my viewpoint. What's yours?
Yeah, it was a great performance from the defense, I think. And my play comes from a defensive player. Mine is the sack from Marlon Tuipulotu that forces the fumble. USC gets that ball. They turn it into a touchdown, and that breaks a 3-3 tie, puts USC up 10-3, and that's it. They kind of, it's not like they blow them out immediately, but that was it gave you a sense of what was coming. And it also knocks Utah starting quarterback Cameron Rising out of the game. That was the last they saw of him. And I don't know, what was Cameron Rising gonna lead that team to a win? I don't know. What's the drop between him and Jake Bentley? It felt like kind of Utah maybe had three quarterbacks going, and you were maybe going to get kind of the same thing from all three of them. But anytime you've got to make that kind of change, in a game, that's not where you want to be as an offense and if Utah. So that kind of caused a big wrinkle and also gave a sense of what was to come. And Clay Helton talked about, hey, our defensive front was amazing in that game. It felt like we played that whole game in the backfield. And that play from Marlon Tuipulotu, I think, kind of set the tone for what you saw the rest of the game. But let's transition. Second thing, your player of the game in, again, this win for USC.
Okay, well, my player of the game is going to be true freshman kicker Parker Lewis. And what made it especially sweet was that he did it in very cold weather where the football can feel like it's a ton of bricks. And the fact that he could nail one from 47 yards out. And if you look at the second half, he's the one who put the pressure on Utah because those 9 points were field goals, if I recall. And so what he did was he allowed everyone to kind of loosen up a little bit and keep the pressure on Utah. So all kudos are going to Parker Lewis, for my opinion.
And drilled him with confidence too. I mean, that's not. I mean, there's a little altitude out there, but stepped up and really nailed him. You mentioned that 47-yarder at the end. These are kicks that look good from 57, from 60. The way he's hitting them. That was big. I'm going to go on defense again. A defensive-driven win, even though you scored 33 points. Kanai Mauga, he comes in, steps up as a starter. Palaie Toyote is out. Kanai comes in and he racks up double-digit tackles. He has a sack. And again, it reminded me of last year. He comes in and starts against Arizona and has an unbelievable year. It's one of those things where you almost want to pick at some point during the season, hey, we need a big performance from him. Let's start him in this game for the first time. And he really responded and I thought played well. And this was a game where the linebackers knew we've got to show up in this game. And we know we're going to be tested and we know we can play downhill and hit guys. And that's what he did. I thought he played particularly very well in this game. And again, that's kind of going to be my defensive player. Again, I'm fine kind of spreading that out and saying, giving some to Marlon and Raylan Goforth, played well, and Talanoa Hufanga had a nice game too. But I think Kanai kind of in the middle did a lot for USC's defense here. Let's go moving forward. The third thing, and this is the thing that you maybe expected or saw coming in this game, and then it played out the way you thought it might.
Well, I saw the defense giving Utah all they could handle. I don't think you could lose two players like Utah lost in the backfield in Hundley and Zach Moss. I think they were really dynamic players. I realized that they also lost some players along the offensive front. And, they seem to not do what they want to do, which was basically they want to get ahead in the game. And they want to be able to then run the ball and drain the clock and shorten the game. And my expectations were met that the defense wouldn't let them do it and took advantage of that inexperience. Now, one thing that really helped was that Utah's maybe most dynamic offensive player, Britton Covey, did not play. So that was kind of like we know that they're going to play a game, but we don't know who's not going to play. And being that he maybe is dynamic, a special teams performer as there is in the Pac-12, and obviously his performance speaks for itself on offense at wide receiver, they were very handicapped. I think that it met expectations that I think they really got to those quarterbacks for Utah, and not only just skill level, but just physically. I like physical football, and I was impressed that the front seven was really putting it on them, which was, I think, a good sign.
It felt like Utah was kind of confused that they couldn't push USC around in this game with their run game, and then didn't really have any other option or anything else to do. I'm gonna pick a couple. I think after we saw what USC's offense did against Arizona State in that season opener, after whatever the camp situation was and practice time and all that, kind of the sloppiness and the turnovers, you certainly had to expect that Utah was going to have something like that. You mentioned you don't have a guy like Tyler Huntley, a guy like Zach Moss that you can just lean on and know, hey, these guys are going to show up and carry us. You had a lot of new faces, a lot of new kind of interactions, quarterback to receivers, quarterback running backs, all of that. So the turnovers, I think you thought were going to be there. Maybe not 5. That certainly USC had a say in that, but just not that kind of crisp offense from Utah that we were that you typically expect from a Kyle Whittingham coach team. I think that showed up and really hurt Utah. And the other one I'll get into just briefly, Kedon Slovis threw the ball better than he did against Arizona. The kind of wobbly stuff going absolutely anywhere, that wasn't the case. The interception is going to be kind of diagnosed and broken down. It felt like on the sideline, he and Eric Kromenhoek had kind of a talk. Hey, we didn't see the same thing on that. And that's what Kedon said after the game too, that was a misread in terms of them both being on the same page. And so I don't think it ended up being that, he's off by 8 yards, and throwing it into quadruple coverage on that. So I think that was what I expect. You expect him not to throw the ball the way he did against Arizona, and you saw that. Still doesn't seem like the Kedon Slovis of last year, and there's kind of some disjointed offense in the second year. But I think in terms of is there something really wrong with him? I do feel like that's put to bed a little bit after this performance.
Well, let me just, while you're on this, if I may, usually he threw 40, 50 times a game, the first 2 games, something of that nature. I was just noticing he threw the ball 35 times. Now, it might be that he has something, and of course, conspiracy theories. Maybe he has tendonitis in his arm, in the elbow area, because they had him throw less, which plus, and weren't we all thrilled to death when we saw a draw play? I know I was.
Couple big draw plays too the last couple weeks.
We couldn't even tell whether a couple of them were actually draw plays or whether they were bobbled snaps. The guys on TV didn't know either.
Yeah, and fewer plays against Utah. Utah kind of chewing the clock a little bit, so that plays into it too. But moving on to the next thing, and the flip side of what we just talked about. What's something you came into this game expecting to see and it wasn't there?
Well, I keep beating it like a drum. The running game to me was better in some ways, but then again, they only had 93 yards rushing, and we're told that they want to hit 170 yards. And I'm not a mathematician, but that's quite a distance from 170. It seems to me that they are having difficulty with it. Although I will say that I thought that Vavai Malapaya really ran well, ran really hard, is smart. I know the end of the game, rather than go out of bounds, he forced his body to stay in bounds to keep the clock running. So, with Malapaya, you're going to get it, the performance. But I think we were all probably surprised that Stepp didn't play. And we didn't realize that he had, suffered some sort of injury to him and just didn't even suit up.
Yeah, both he and Carr. I mean, Stephen Carr had the one carry, but again, kind of hit with the injury bug throughout the week. And Clay Helton said with Markese Stepp having that pectoral injury, they didn't feel like he could go. He didn't feel like himself today. And then Stephen Carr, again, limited throughout the week. And I don't believe Clay Helton said specifically what the injury he was dealing with was, but went and he said he took a knee to the back during that play that he was in. And so they pulled him. They knew coming in, this was going to be a Vi game where they had to rely heavily on him. And my kind of thing that I expected to see and I didn't see is along those lines as well. When you talk about the running game, 93 yards against Utah feels like about 250 yards, considering last year USC, I believe the numbers were 22 rushes for 13 yards on the ground against Utah last year. So going from 13 to 93, that's a huge improvement. Still, again, you're not a running team. You never feel like, hey, we can just crush this team on the ground. And my point here, my thing here was it's still this offense in year two now, when coming into games, yes, we know Utah plays a lot of man and they did it a bit and got burned when they did. But boy, early on, it felt like, hey, we're seeing this again. Rush 3, maybe rush 4. You've got 7 guys back in zone, 8 guys back in zone. And it still feels like USC is getting surprised by that. It still feels, you come out and you throw, and you're punting. It feels like they're not ready to just after the first play or even before the first play, hey, we know we're going to get that 7-man drop, 8-man drop. Let's find some things to do that. When teams do that, USC still feels like they don't really know what to do and don't have a counter punch to that to go to right away. And at this point, I'm expecting that to be there. I mean, these are good coaches. These are good offensive coaches. They understand, this system. Graham Harrell knows, what he's doing with this system, and they just never have that immediate, fix when they see that defense. And so again, maybe I shouldn't be surprised by that at this point, but I thought going into this game that they'd have kind of a quick counter for what Utah threw. And again, when they got down close, Utah goes to man coverage. Tyler Vaughn beats the true freshman inside and gets a touchdown pretty easily. So they still have that. They can still go to that anytime they can catch you in man. Those wide receivers can beat you. Going to our fifth thing now, wrapping this up a little bit. Give me your biggest takeaway in terms of what you saw from this game and spinning it forward. Again, 3 games left in the regular season. USC does not have to leave Los Angeles for the rest of the regular season. And right now, looking forward again, this Colorado game coming up is it's a lot bigger than maybe we thought the Colorado game was going to be before the season started.
Well, my takeaway, first of all, is that they won the game. That's the most important thing. They beat Utah. This Utah team looked like a team that hadn't played in a long time, and this was their first game. I don't think the Utah defense let them down. I think it was the offense that let them down, because if you want to just look at it in a one way, SC didn't convert 4 potential touchdowns, although the last one was a field goal. That was cosmetic. But, you know, did they score any touchdowns in the second half? That's the question. But no, I think the point is where we go from here is that all three remaining games, Colorado is a good team. They're a competitive team. They'll come to play, so there should be no disrespect, so to speak, from that one. Then you have Washington State that looks like it really likes to play and can play. And then we're going to end with UCLA. And if you watch UCLA against Oregon, you know what? UCLA is going to be a tough team to play. So anyone who thinks that this race is over for the South Division sees something that I don't see. Now, obviously, if you win against Colorado, that narrows kind of like the magic number in baseball, you know, because you don't know what these other teams are going to do when they play the other teams. But SC has, of course, positioned itself. They're right where we thought they would be. I just don't know if we thought that they would be the way they are to get to be 3-0. But, you know, they're a team in progress. You know, Clay Helton knows it. And it should be an exciting final 3 weeks of a regular season.
Yeah, my takeaway is you just won by 16 points at Utah. I mean, if you had said that again, you take out Arizona State, you take out Arizona. If you go back to before the season started and you said, hey, you're going to go win by 16 points and put up 33 in Salt Lake City against Utah, I think everybody would have taken that. And so if that's where you are in the season right now and kind of this is you going forward, I think you're in a good spot. My takeaway is how the defense played. There were a lot of questions, you know, when are they going to get it figured out and what's going on with kind of giving up these runs. And there's still cracks, right? The long third down conversion by the quarterback and things like that. But it's not so much the stats, even though you can kind of sit on those stats, especially in the second half and how they finish the game off. But the way they played, the energy they have, and you can feel kind of the confidence that they're playing with right now. I think they needed a game like this, like Utah, that was going to come out and try to punch them, and USC needed the chance to punch back and play tough and play big and kind of strut a little bit. And I think that they did that, and I think that gives the defense kind of a handhold, you know, as they're trying to climb up the Pac-12 South. It gives them a spot that they can really sort of look back to and say, hey, you know, we did this, we put this together. You know, we helped get this win in a big way. And I think that's big for a defense, again, still learning and still trying to figure out this Todd Orlando system and scheme and how it works and how everybody fits. Utah has guys. I don't think that this was a Utah offense clearly clicking on all cylinders. They got to figure out kind of what's going on with quarterback, but they've got some wide receivers. They've got some tight ends. They've got, you know, returning offensive linemen. This isn't a nothing Utah offense, and USC's defense, I thought, showed up well against them. And I think that maybe, like I said, that handhold, that kind of kickstart for the rest of the season, because they're going to need it. Again, what we thought maybe would be that, you know, you get to the mountain and then you're sliding down for these last 3 games. No, it goes up. These are tougher. These last 3 games are going to be tougher than we thought they were, I think, at the beginning of the season. But like Clay Helton said, they're going to try to go 1-0 every week. This week, they went 1-0, went out to Salt Lake City, got a 33-17 win. They'll come back, celebrate it, and then start getting ready for a visit from the 2-0 Colorado Buffaloes and the 4th team this year that will not have played the previous week before facing USC. So again, USC going up against a lot of well-rested teams, and we'll see how that works out next week. But for now, for looking back at USC's 33-17 win against the Utah Utes, for Greg Katz, this is Eric McKinney. Thanks for watching We Are SC.